One. The weather is not great here in Gozo today. Very cold. That's why I'm all wrapped up. Anyway, today's subject is about isolation. Um, if there's anything in particular that you want to ask me, if you're watching this live, just write the little comment and it comes up and I can see it and then I can do my best to answer it. Now, isolation is probably an agoraphobic's dream, although not quite, but it is agoraphobia, is a fear of going into the outside world. And in a sense at the moment, I think we're all beginning to get this sense of is it safe out there? But first of all, let's look at a couple of things. I have my little list here to try and keep me on track. So aloneness and being lonely are two very different things, and I'm just going to explain those briefly. When we're being lonely or feel lonely and bored, we're kind of caught in the child part of us, that inner child that just feels lost and unparented and doesn't know how to cope with it all. So what happens is we're not parenting our child, our own inner child, when we're getting lonely. What we have to do is move into a sense of it's okay to be alone and I can look after myself. I can give the comfort to me that I need to that inner child part. Now, there's some other elements of being alone, which is we don't necessarily have physical contact. If you have pets, dogs, cats, birds, snakes, then you have another living being that you're touching. And for people who are totally isolated during this very difficult time, that can be hard as well and can increase the sense of loneliness. So it really is important to reach out and ask for help. In a sense, it's better to speak to people. We need to probably get out of the habit we've got into of messaging and texting, excuse me, and get back into actually calling someone or using online videos so that we can actually see the face, that the person that we're talking to. This can help us not feel so alone. I'm human and I get scared about everything that's happening at the moment and I have my own little sort of wobbles. So what I do is I phone someone up and say, hey, just need 3 or 4 minutes just to talk, just to ground me, feeling a bit, and that makes a difference, because as soon as you hear somebody's voice coming back to you, because remember, even though there's a lot of us out there, a lot of you out there who are doing what you can for the community and showing that you have different skills to offer and to help others, within that, it's okay to show your vulnerability. I think we've seen that in some of the videos that we see of these doctors and nurses and healthcare staff. When they are breaking down and crying, they can't hold it together all the time. So I suppose I'm saying this because it is important that we all know, whatever our role in society and whatever we're doing to voluntarily put in at the moment, that it's okay to also be vulnerable. It's okay to also need help. But let's get back to the practical solutions of how we cope with being alone. And at that point, I want to also say it's not always easy, because we can be alone when we're sharing a house with a partner, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, kids, parents. So that can be almost more challenging and can be more isolating, because you can't always be your absolute natural self. There's so much of the dynamics going on, of the interpersonal dynamics of that family group, or just of the group of the two of you. And it's going to put huge stress on relationships and marriages at this point. So give yourself time to stand back and go, okay, we're in this together. We're going to have to find a way to get through it, and try to respond to each other, give each other time out when you clash, and instead of reacting, because when we get into reacting quickly, knee-jerk arguments, statements, it just doesn't help us. It creates more tension, more anxiety. So really, really work on your interpersonal skills when you're sharing during this difficult time of being alone and being alone together. So one of the things we have to do is actually come to terms with the fact that our whole environment, our external environment, has changed. And our internal, where we're living, our home, has had to change. We've had to adapt things to suit this new way of living that we have to do. And it is living. Just because we're in isolation, for whatever the reason at this time, it doesn't mean we stop living. Life still happens. I mentioned that the other day when I was talking about grief and loss. Life carries on going on. Things will happen within the home that you think, oh my God, I don't need this now. Like someone told me her freezer was packing up. Someone else told me her microwave had blown up. It's like, what? This is happening now. And so these are extra stressors that don't help with us as we're trying to cope with just the very fact that we're isolated. So it's really important to have a really good, rigid routine. That's really difficult. It's self-discipline. For me, it's helped because I've decided that because I have a sort of a vision in mind of how I can contribute to the community. So it's given me a purpose, and it means I have to get up at a certain time. I have to do my preparation for what I'm going to talk about the next day, the day before. And often before I get out of bed in the morning, I'm going through making more notes. So it's really important that you have some sort of routine, that you set your get up time. If you're allowed a daily walk, then you keep your set time to having your daily walk and keep your distance from others, as we've all been advised we have to do. Now, it's also interesting to think about this isolation in terms of, perhaps meeting somebody outside, bearing in mind we're all in isolation. So you have to keep at this distance. So the natural inclination is to give someone a hug, but we have to kind of keep this distance and go, hello from 2 meters. And this is going to take some getting used to. And I think it's going to have a big effect in the longer term on how we respond and view things in future. So it's always important to, set your daily schedule, set regular meal times, sit down at the table. All we've wanted to do for years is sit in front of the telly with the tray on our lap and have telly dinners and watch whatever. And what I'm suggesting now is actually we need to go back to some of the old traditional ways of you sit down at breakfast. If you are in isolation with a partner, that you have good conversation. Try not to watch the news too much. Be informed, but don't really, really sink into it. It's depressing. Sometimes I find myself watching too much and it affects me. I start to feel the anxiety building up. So stop it. Keep informed, do what you need to do, but don't go into overload. The other thing is, I've noticed, I have to really remind myself what day is it today. I mean, I have to do that normally, but it's sort of at the beginning. I'm getting better at it now because I'm keeping a calendar. So keep a calendar, make notes, make sure you know what you're doing. And, Mondays is wash day or whatever, or Tuesdays is the day I will do the weekly shop. Wednesdays, I will go to my virtual slimming club, to my virtual slimming club buddies out there. The other thing I've noticed is that the anxieties when we're in isolation can rise about the slightest sensation of a change in our health because we are having to be in because of this pandemic. I noticed with myself yesterday that I just felt a little bit down here, a little bit of a irritation, like a cough. And so I started to worry about it. And then a friend reminded me, because we were speaking on the phone, on visual, and she reminded me it's allergy season. You get, I get a lot of, sinusitis and stuff like that. So that was me being helped by a friend to help get me back on track and think, oh yes, of course, because we don't know. But obviously, if you're really worried with the symptoms you have, there are a lot of online facilities to check out your symptoms. And the easiest way with this particular virus at the moment is to, first of all, take your temperature. If it's normal or below normal, the chances are you're okay. I'm not a doctor, so please don't, I'm just passing on what I've been told. Now, if there is, if we can somehow control the uncertainty, so we have to stay in the present. This is really, really a very important time to practice mindfulness, because if we don't stay in the present, we start getting into the what ifs. What if my little cough here is something worse? What if it isn't? Let's cross that bridge if we come to it. So try and always bring yourself back to the present moment. Now, we're beginning to run out of time because I'm trying to keep these within 10 minutes and I've just gone 11 seconds over. So what I'm going to say now is tomorrow's is going to be about working from home, and so it's a little bit of an extension about isolation and how we manage that. So that's going to be tomorrow, and it's going to be slightly earlier because it's going to actually be at about 9 o'clock in the morning Central European time. So once again, I want to say thank you so much for joining me and watching me. And I'm just going to play a little bit of music to kind of close this one down, because I thought that would be nice, because I'm starting to play a lot more music. We really need music. So here we go, if I've got it at the right place. Oh, hang on. I'm nearly there. Having to be a completely amazing tech person. Here we go. Bit of music. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Thank you. God bless. Here comes the